RKW Friday morning continues here on 104.5 The Zone. Crew is all here. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by our very good friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's and On 3 with the latest out of Knoxville this morning. Brent, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Hope you guys are well this morning.
We are excellent. Divisional round football. We've got a GM search. We've got transfer portal. It is all happening, as always.
So what you're telling me is everybody's still drinking at this point. Unlike what the song just said, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Heads are always on swivels, Brent, as you know.
I understand. Trust me. I totally get it. We're sitting here looking at rev share, and everything changes by the minute. So who knows what that's going to look like in 5 months, you know? So
Totally.
It's always something.
Yeah, I don't even know if this is a football city with a drinking problem. It's just a city with a drinking problem right now with football issues.
Drinking city with a football problem.
Yeah, seriously.
No doubt about it. Brent, good news for Tennessee this week. On one front, as they get Tim Banks reportedly locked down with an extension. How did this materialize? And were you surprised there wasn't more interest in him from teams like Penn State and Clemson and some of these big programs with big defensive coordinator openings?
There was a little bit, maybe not the Penn State thing. I think that I'm not saying he and James Franklin have a bad relationship, because I don't believe they do, but I don't think that's the direction James Franklin was going to go after he removed, and his two co-coordinators, one of those being Banks, moved on, and he moved on to somewhere else. I didn't think he would circle back around there. What you don't know in this deal is you don't know how much there was ever really any interest. You don't know how much Tim Banks really pushed himself to try to be in play at some other schools, how much of this was agent movement and agent driven. That's always a factor here. What we know is that Tennessee's been actively trying to get Tim Banks extended for a month and a half now, 2 months, and they're going to finally get it home. So we think they're going to get it home. It's not signed, but I think it's agreed upon, and they're just waiting on everything to be, I's dotted and T's crossed, and that seems to take forever with contracts at the University of Tennessee. See Tony Vitello back this summer. Right. So, I believe it's going to get done. I don't think there's going to be any opening that pops up here that changes any of that. But, I think some of this was agent-driven. I think some of this was they just put things on the shelf and didn't go about it. I know that there was some early inquiries from Miami, and he had no interest in Miami, none whatsoever. I don't know where the Clemson thing really ended up being. His name got mentioned, but I don't know that it ever really got down the road with anything. But when you're trying to get a new deal done, part of your agent's job is to keep your name in the news and try to make it, get yourself involved in other jobs to help your negotiation leverage and all that stuff. And that's the game we've been playing for the last few weeks.
So, Brent, the bad news on that side of the ball, Jermon McCoy and his torn ACL, first reported by you guys in Austin earlier this week. What is his timetable? Is there optimism he's available when Tennessee takes on a pretty good Syracuse team to start next season?
Yeah, I mean, there's hope. I don't know if optimism. I mean, he's early in the stages of rehabbing after having surgery, and you just never know how anybody recovers from one of those. There's so many variables for everybody's body in that. We've seen Amari Rodgers, for example, when he was at Clemson, tore his later, actually a little later in the spring, and was back for the season opener. When everybody said that he was planning on being back for the opener, you're like, there's no way he recovers that fast. And he did. Everybody's different, and so we'll see how McCoy recovers and where it goes from there. There's certainly hope that that's the case, but I don't think anybody is declaring that the definite timetable. I think Tennessee's been looking in the portal for a little insurance and protection and depth at that position. I don't think anything's materializing right now. We'll see if anybody goes in the portal in the coming days. Does a grad transfer go in the portal? Or is Tennessee still pursuing at that position when the spring portal window opens up? We'll have to sit back and wait and see. What we know is, Jalen McMurray, you're on deck, time to go. And obviously Ricky Gibson's going to be an anchor for them at corner. And the hope would be that McCoy is back sooner rather than later, but you just don't know for sure.
Brent Hubs with us, the VolQuest's on 3. Hubs, man, like Will and I, Kayla and I also were speaking about like football on Saturdays, almost being gone except for the NFL. Well, guess what, man? Our good friend and Tennessee native, man, Glorilla, will be hosting Saturday Night Live.
Oh, my gosh. I did not know where you were going with that.
She will be hosting Saturday Night Live with Dave Chappelle, man. What a win for the state, Hubs, and for me and you.
Unbelievable, Ramon. We're actually going to get you to stay up past your bedtime, which is going to be exciting. You're going to be up at 11:30 at night to watch TV. I mean, I'm sure you'll have to get a nap sometime in between during the day to get yourself ready. But, yeah, it's a huge win for you. And congratulations to all. And I don't know that replaces football for me, Ramon. I'm sorry. I mean, I understand it does for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you sort of like football, and it's kind of it's sort of a big deal to you. But you got a lot of other interests in the world. The rest of us, man, like we're football 365, right? And so, I'll probably be watching game tape of or watching an old game at that point instead of Saturday Night Live would be my guess.
Hey, my advice for you, just don't fall asleep on planes watching the tape, okay?
Trust me, there's way too many pictures of me floating around mouth wide open looking up against the plane window. You just hope nobody's posting those anywhere because nobody can fall asleep faster on a plane than I can, but that's a given.
You want to hear what's funny about that? What year was this? It had to be 2008. Miss Vicky Fulmer got me and Anthony Parker sleep behind her and Coach Fulmer on the plane going out to the West Coast. I still have that picture somewhere. So, yeah, that happens even from the head coach's wife.
I don't have one from a celebrity like you do, but trust me, I've got plenty of family who are taking laughing pictures at me sound asleep on airplanes.
No doubt. Hubs, I'll report back to you on how Glorilla does, though. But
okay,
besides,
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Besides,
if you're going to work next week, I mean, we got to see if we can get back-to-back weeks out of it.
well,
you want to keep going, Ramon?
No. I appreciate you playing my shenanigans, right? Playing my shenanigans. With that being said, though, too, man, you speak about these coaches and their contracts, Hubs. Like, as far as assistant coaches and coordinators, right? Is there, like, with Coach Eckler, is it just like bad blood that like they don't get these types of things done? Or is it just the way the business of assistant coaches go as it pertains to their contract extensions? Because he seems to have been flirting. They just let him go flirt with Nebraska, whoever else. Is that just how it goes?
I think that I don't think that they're wanting every coach out there to be exploring other jobs by any means. But Nebraska was a unique situation because that's where Mike Eckler's from. So, again, his name came up there. I don't know how deep the conversation has ever gotten. And that position's not been filled at Nebraska. It certainly doesn't feel like that Matt Rule is going to go the direction of Mike Eckler. Tennessee, by and large, under Danny White, has been slow to finalize deals. Most guys around the country and assistant coaches in football aren't working on expiring contracts. Most of them get an extension, an automatic rollover, and they have a 2-year deal as they enter into the season. But that's not been the way that Danny White has done it with some of his assistants at Tennessee, and that's why you've got 4 coaches when you count the strength coach who's been on expiring deals. I think they're all going to get a new deal. Now, do they get a multi-year deal, or is it a single-year deal like Willie Martinez got last year? Yeah. I don't think that Danny White's bothered by that, and for some, but it's a big thing because they come back to recruiting, and man, you got to show stability and have all of those things, and have show the commitment that the assistant coach is going to be here and all that type of thing. And I think Danny White believes, listen, if you do your job as an assistant coach, you're going to be here because the head coach wants you here. If you don't, then, you're subject to making a move, whether you're on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal. So it's a little bit different philosophy, I think, than some other ADs have, and certainly different philosophy than some other ADs I've covered at Tennessee have had in terms of how many coaches are working on expiring deals. You don't see that a lot, but it's not been uncommon at Tennessee in football.
Brent Hubbs, our good friend of VolQuest's, joining us as he does every Friday at this time. So with some key guys leaving on offense, Cooper Mays, Dylan Sampson, Brew McCoy, in terms of leadership, and we all know, Nico Iamaliava continues to grow into that role as well. But who else steps up in terms of the leadership department to guide this team next year?
I think I won't say the singular biggest question for this team in the offseason, but I do think it's a big question. And I think it's a question on both sides of the ball. We know Miles Kitselman, who's not been in this program long, he's moving into his second year. He's got some natural leadership ability, and I think he's been working pretty hard with Ethan Davis here the last couple of weeks. They got back to town early because he knows Ethan Davis has got to help him because, if you're going to go 12 personnel, you got to find a second tight end, and they need Ethan Davis to take a step forward. Now, they got the incoming freshman, but Davis is the most likely guy there, so I think Miles Kitselman's trying to push him, and I think Davis has got probably a greater sense of urgency right now because last year didn't go exactly the way he thought it would go. And now his time is here. He's got to show up. But I think on the other side of the ball, you have leadership questions too. I mean, who is going to be the leader? I mean, Omari Thomas has been a mainstay in the anchor for them defensively, and he's gone. Keenan Peely was a leader before he got hurt. So where's Arian Carter from a leadership standpoint? Jermod McCoy, a quiet guy, led by example. He's not going to be, he's not going to be on the practice field, and he's not going to be doing team activities while he rehabs. So where's your vocal leader on the defensive side of the ball? And that's an interesting deal, and Ramon would know this better than anybody in the locker room. I mean, you can't force that. I mean, a coach can want somebody, he's got to take the leadership role, but that guy's got to have everybody's respect in the locker room through his work ethic and how he goes about his business. And you can't just come in and be the unproven guy who starts screaming and shouting at people. It's got to come organically. How does that develop over the course of the next 5 or 6 weeks before Tennessee goes to spring practice, and how does it develop throughout this off season? Because it's going to be critical for Tennessee to have strong leadership when they get to the field this fall.
Brent, tell us about Star Thomas right now and just the update with him possibly seeing if they can get him to come over here to Tennessee.
Yeah, an unusual transfer in the fact that, he's a running back from Duke who ran for over 800 yards. So a guy who's proven, when you add in his totals at New Mexico State, he's rushed for 2,500 yards in college football. So a pretty successful career. He's a grad transfer, gone into the portal at Duke, but there hasn't been a ton of movement with him. Cal had some interest. Central Florida had some interest. And you kind of wonder, why? What's the hang-up there that nobody else, and no offense to those two schools, but nobody else of a Power 5 ilk or nobody in the Southeast, because he's originally from Homer, Louisiana, has had real interest in him. So, Tennessee's got him in town. Obviously a vetting process to look at him and, medically, where are you? Physically, are you a right culture fit? What's the NIL factor in this thing? Is he a guy who didn't get a lot of traction because his, quote, asking price was high? I don't know. So we'll see what happens with that one. Tennessee would like to add a back to add some depth to that room and some experience, and certainly Star Thomas has that and has been productive, and not just at New Mexico State, but in the ACC as well. So I think a pretty intriguing prospect. We'll see what happens after that visit ends, end of day today, first thing in the morning.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest on 3, our guests this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, it's amazing the amount of players who will put out graphics about where they're going to visit who never end up making it to campus. For half the programs they put out these graphics for. And you've got reputable people nationally who are know what they're doing, Brent, as you know, and then these players, whether it's leverage, whether it's agents, whether it's somebody in the family, because anybody can be an agent if you can just pick up a phone in college football, are putting these things out there. Is Tennessee currently on the board for any wide receivers within this, or is Tennessee just the school that wide receivers are using for leverage to get a bigger price from schools they're actually interested in?
Well, I think Tennessee, not just wide receiver, but I think Tennessee shows up on a lot of people's early list. And I think agents are using schools that have reputations as good NIL plans and a reputation of paying, decent amount of money. And, if a prospect hears from Tennessee in just the vetting out process, right? Just a simple call to say, hey, would you have any interest? Or, hey, would you like to have a conversation? Or, hey, kind of what's your asking price? What are you looking for? Then automatically there's an agent out there saying, man, they're interested. Tennessee's interested, or Oregon's interested, or, school X is interested, because it looks much better if you can put out 4 or 5, quote, big name schools that have a good NIL reputation to help your leveraging point, right? I mean, there's a reason Gundy at Oklahoma State, his name shows up every year. It has shown up every year for 10 years on coaching searches, and he's never moved, right? I mean, there's some people that kind of play that for the leverage game. And, I think that, there's a lot of people who say, yeah, I'm interested in visiting, so I plan on visiting there, but they don't know if Tennessee's planning on visiting them back, because Tennessee's just starting to look into it. And from Tennessee's standpoint, or another school standpoint, maybe the price is too high. Maybe there's a red flag of some sort there. Maybe that, they just have somebody who's just checking everybody out to see kind of what the deal is, and it never develops into anything once a coach evaluates it. The back room guy who's looking at portal tape evaluates that guy, and he takes it to a coach, and he calls the kid because he doesn't want to take the tape to the coach until he knows the kid might have some interest. They take it to the coach, and the coach says, nah, I don't like him. I don't like this about him. We're not going to go that direction. Well, then they never really had any interest, but the kid's already put a graphic out because Tennessee's reached out to his people to see if he might have interest. That's where we're at with all that stuff right now. So it really doesn't count, to answer your question, in my opinion, until they get to campus for a visit.
Right.
Then it gets real. Up until they visit campus, it's just speculation. The same way, if it's in a job search, until somebody interviews that guy, it's just speculation that they're a candidate for the job. And it's, there's some similarities there.
With that being said, Hubs, I don't ever want to play rumor mill with certain stuff, though, too. But considering, you know me, I'm tabloid center over here.
TMZ.
yeah, TMZ over here, RMZ. With that being said, though, considering what Miami paid for Carson Beck, allegedly, did they somewhat tamper a little bit with Nico and at least ask questions?
Oh, I mean, tampering's that's the worst word. I mean, that's the biggest waste of time. Yeah. We should quit talking about tampering. I mean, there's no one, you're not proving it, and B, everybody knows it's happening. Yeah. So how are you going to stop it? Okay, so let's say Miami calls a 7-on-7 coach or an assistant off-season trainer that has no affiliation with the school for that particular player. And is that tampering? Yeah, it is. Is everybody doing it? Yeah, everybody is, I mean, Carson Beck's girlfriend goes to Miami. You think somebody in the football staff went to her and said, hey, would your boyfriend have any interest in coming here? Is that tampering? Yeah. I mean, that's how it works. And so it's funny, everybody talks about tampering. There's no way to enforce it. There's no way to catch it. Because unless somebody's got proof that the offensive coordinator called the quarterback to see if they're interested, and that's just not happening. Yeah. It's the collectives, the third parties, all having discussions to say, hey, if he went in the portal, would you have interest? Not only would you have interest, where are you from a financial standpoint if he goes in the portal? If he goes in why do we think somebody goes in the portal and puts a do not inquire tag on it? Yeah. Because they know where they're going. Well, why do they know where they're going? Is it because it was their childhood dream school? Probably not. It's probably because their agents worked out a deal with the third-party collective to go there and don't bother me because I know where I'm going. And that happens a lot. And that's tampering, but there's no – by the law, by the rule, that's tampering, but there's no violation of tampering. Tampering happens everywhere. We should quit talking about tampering.
Wild
that
West.
Was actually interesting.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's and On 3, the best person to sift through all of it with us Fridays here at the show. Brent, appreciate you as always, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. You too. See you. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest. Not as hype as Ramon for GLO in the SNL coming up this upcoming weekend.
You'll have to send him a clip.
Coming up next, what is the one thing you would change in college football? If you could pick one thing next season, change it unilaterally. Well, what would that be? We'll talk about that next.